We keep saying, and we've said so many times today, we exclusively invest in open source. What is that, and why do we keep saying that? What is open source all about? For us at the Office of Innovation and for the UNICEF Ventures team, the reason that we emphasize so much on open source technology is because we're really trying to preserve here the freedom of the user, the transparency for the user. We want to be able to provide a user with the ability to read, run, revisit, as well as redistribute the code that they're seeing in a solution. Just being able to have the ability to have that access to do what you want with the tool that you're paying for, or that you're using for whichever purpose, whichever use case, but really being able to contribute to it and to adapt it to your own needs. And we think that's the only way to build software. And so for that, we're now going to hear about a few solutions focusing on emergency response. For UNICEF's focus on, with this particular Climate Action Cohort, we have with us 3 companies joining us. Madusudhanan from India, representing Equinoct. We have Boubacar from Map Action, coming from Mali. We also have Steve, who's joining us to represent Similie from Timor-Leste. And Sunita Grote, the Senior Advisor on Innovation, moderating this panel. Thank you.
I thought there was a table here, but there isn't, so I will. Sana took all my talking points. So thanks so much for the introduction. Maybe just to start, and since it's the third of 3 panels, maybe just to level set a little bit, would someone like to just tell us a bit what open source is, so we can make sure that we're all on the same page here? What's open source? I'm not going to ask the panelists. I'll see if then someone else in the room knows.
Code in the open domain that anybody could contribute to and use.
Yep, I think that's a pretty good summary. An analogy that we like to use is also about a cake and its recipe. So you can not only buy the cake, but you can get the recipe. So you can remake the cake, you can make it in a different flavor, in a different size, in a different quantity, and everything of that is accessible. So all the solutions you heard about today and that you'll hear about on this panel, every one of the 140 plus solutions that the Venture Fund has supported to date are open source. So that means that that solution, its code, its data, its designs, are available on open source licenses. It also means that it's open to contributions from the community. And so that's one of the key features that, we've already heard about the value of community for the businesses, but we'll talk a little bit now also about the value of community for the technology and the product itself. So before we dive more into that, I'd love to hear a little bit from each of you. Maybe Madhu gets Equinoct is particularly close to my heart. I'm not supposed to take any favorites, but Madhu and his team are from the same region that my family's from in India, so that's a particularly nice connection. Tell us a little bit about the challenge that you're trying to solve.
Thank you, Sunita, and myself, Madusudhanan, and my colleague, Abhay. We are from the southern part of India. It's called Kerala. And normally, it is been known to the world as the Malabar Coast, where all spices are pumped into the Europe and other regions. So we are known to everyone from their kitchens and all. The challenge, when you look at this climate cohort, of the 8 companies, 6 are from the tropics. So when you look at why these 6 are from the tropics, because climate change is making a blunt on the whole systems of the tropics. And why tropics? Because it's received the major amount of energy from the sun. And the changes that is happening there because of the higher energy contribution and concentration, it's changing its atmosphere, it's changing its seas, and there are lots and lots of disasters that is in store, especially increasing cyclones, floods, droughts, tidal flooding, coastal flooding, and all those things are coming together. And this is affecting all lives and livelihoods of the whole tropics. And that is why these 6 companies actually are from, because this cohort actually related to that particular issue. So we have to look at this larger perspective that not from the global south or global north, but this topic that is going to be the problem area, and that is going to give you the solutions to the problem too. And how it is going to be a solution. So when you look at the whole atmospheric circulation, something, because I'm coming from an academic barrier to innovation, so my major work was the last 25 years of research and research and research, and climate research and research and research, not in the business aspect of it, but here the thing is that the tropical area consists of the 50% of biodiversity of the world, and it contributes the major share of fresh water into the ocean, and it gives the maximum 30% of the evapotranspiration to the atmosphere, and it controls the whole atmospheric processes. So if you don't understand the role of tropics in climate change and the solution that comes from the tropics, I think we will be losing it. So this is very important that this is actually captured by the UNICEF first climate cohort. It's actually captured the real sense of it. And I think this is what the value that UNICEF brings to the board across the globe, that this is the area, this is the problem area, and this is the issues. So when you look at the issues from this point of view, I'm coming from Kerala, and it is just 8 degrees above the tropic equator. And from our perspective, the major issue that we have faced in 2018 was the floods of 2018. So as an academician, I was not an entrepreneur at that point of time, or an innovator at that point of time. I was trying to, because I was just out of the academics, and I was monitoring the systems which is available in my country, and I could identify that there's a possibility of flood in the near future, in the near days. And I could reach out to my administrators, my people, and all across whom I know, so that I can influence the decision responses, disaster response, and things like that. But it was a huge failure, because I could not convince my government, convince my people that you have to be prepared for this, because it's in the pipeline. So this really impacted me as a person, because even the knowledge is not going to help anyone. Even if you know, it's not going to help. So during that period of time, when I was reaching to various people, there was a community where they asked me when it is going to hit me, or what you can tell me, which all areas will be impacted because of what you say. Then I went back to them and asked them, without data I cannot tell you anything, because I need real data so that I can tell you something. So they asked me again, what kind of data you need? I need the river level data, I need the rainfall data, I need other groundwater level data. But these data sets are not available, especially in this tropical region. The monitoring networks are very poor, and it's very difficult to have this information to take a decision, to give actionable information to even to the people or to the government. So this lack of information, lack of knowledge, that led actually to this formation of this organization that we represent. Equinoct, it's not just Equinoct community sourced modeling solutions. So we source whole data, whole knowledge, whole wisdom from the communities across. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
I think I answered your...
You answered it for sure. Thank you. Stephen, can I ask you to tell us a little bit about what is so unique about Similie's solution?
So Similie has already built a multi-hazard early warning system. We've designed and built the hardware. We're based in Timor-Leste. We've got people on the ground there working for us in our office doing installations. We will then also have a platform to record the data, and a process whereby stakeholders can view their dashboards and look at what's happening. We can already produce early warnings with maybe 2-3 hours for a flash flood event, for example. With the venture fund investment, we are looking to put in some artificial intelligence. I prefer machine learning, but AI is a nice buzzword, to help us increase our response times. So we're looking for not only patterns, but also outliers within these data sets. In, let's call them first world countries, UK, Northern Europe, there's a vast amount of data available. There's huge amounts of resources going into disaster prediction. In these data poor regions, there is no data, and we've touched on this just now. So we're hoping that we can build this model on limited data sets in emerging economies, which will allow us to give 2 to 3 days, hopefully, of advanced warning of these things, not just looking at the weather, but making a prediction based on ground sensors and weather data, and also connecting into the community for that local knowledge to set the levels to say, this is coming, it's time to move.
Boubacar, come to you. Tell us a little bit about Map Action and kind of how you got to be here with us.
Thank you. So my name is Boubacar Youssouf Keita. I'm the founder of Map Action, a company based in Mali, West Africa. So before talking about the solution itself, I think it worth painting a little bit the context. Because if I tell you about Map Action just like this, you'll find it maybe a little bit flat, but you have to understand the situation. Mali, like many African countries, face a lot of challenges, like a lot. And with all those complex problems, climate change and environmental issues are one of the biggest. And clearly, as one of the poorest countries in the world, we cannot afford climate change impacts. So Malian government is really aware of that. You know that you have to take action, stuff like that. And in order to do that, he needs data. He needs a reliable, real-time data. Where are the problems? How do they impact people? And the problem is they don't have those real-time and reliable data. So as an engineer in environment science and as an entrepreneur, I started asking myself, how can I help the government, but also the people that are facing the problem, that are be impacted by the problems? And also, how can I make money from that situation? And that's how we came up with Map Action. Say, okay, in Mali, there are really big penetration of smartphone usage. It's like this simple tool that we use every day is actually something that can make a huge impact. So we decided to build an app freely used by citizens to actually report the problems they are seeing every day in where they live, where they work, or where they study, by just taking a picture or taking a short video, record a voice note, like WhatsApp, because WhatsApp is very used in Mali. So we decided to integrate those features, and by just allowing to share the common problems they are facing every day on the environmental and climate change level, we found out that we can make like a lot of impact. And that's how the idea came up.
Thanks so much. And I think one thing that we were discussing yesterday is how contagious all of this team's enthusiasm is and optimism. I think we often get pulled down by the numbers, especially with everything that's happening in the world at the moment. And it's really inspiring to see how all of you are sort of sticking with it, sometimes for years, as we heard, to really get these companies off the ground. So what we're here now to discuss very specifically is what you all have in common, which is the decision to develop your solution in the open. Maybe we nudged you along a little bit. Maybe it was something that you had already decided on yourselves. Maybe let's come back to you, Boubacar, since you were already speaking. Tell us a little bit about that decision. Okay. Maybe it was due to us, that's fine. And tell us why, though, it made sense for you.
Yeah, to be completely honest, it's due to a UNICEF Venture Fund. Yeah, that's me being honest. Because before that, we never thought about open source. While in our daily work, we use mostly all of the features that are inside our app are open source software and platforms. So, but we didn't have like that mindset actually. But okay, we started doing our research, see that it's kind of obvious, especially for a platform, a collaboration and community-centered platform like Map Action, because the users, the citizens, they are our data provider.
Yeah.
We don't pay them, but they do it. And I think it's just obvious that to let these people know that what's happening to their data, where does it go, and it could be part of something even bigger elsewhere. Same product, same software, same code, using in another platform to do something even bigger. And that comes back to the word for us, really, which is impact. So we just imagine like, okay, we have developed something that can be used elsewhere to make even bigger impact. That will come back to us, say, okay, Map Action has started something that has even more impact elsewhere than Mali, elsewhere than Africa. And I think for us, it makes sense a lot. Yeah.
Madhu, how about your team?
When you start with open source, so this is the core philosophy that we source everything from the community. It's not ours. Nothing is ours. Even if it is resources like the finance, or maybe the data, or maybe the action, it's everything from the community. So when philosophically saying, or the core philosophy of the organization is community sourced and open sourced. But before coming here, we don't have a clear idea about how you make business out of an open source kind of a thing. So here, this UNICEF actually provided us a platform and mentorship kind of a journey through which we can look at this as a product which is available in the open source market. So this is what I felt very, very much enthusiastic about the UNICEF program. And one more thing that I would like to add here is that the human resource intensive approach is the whole problem of climate change. This has actually caused climate change. So if you also go from the resource intensive perspective to solve the problem, I think this is not going to solve it. So we need a different kind of approach, a community approach, where we share the resources. If one company builds something and another company build the similar thing with the same kind of resource and resource intensive approach, that is not going to work here. So this has to be this is the core thing that we should always be in our mind when we think about the solution of climate change. So it should be shared. Without that, it's not going to happen.
Stephen, I'm curious to hear, we heard a little bit about the challenges earlier about being open source. Is there something that you have already encountered by being open source, or that you think might come your way in the coming months, that you're sort of anticipating, anxious about, feel like you need to maybe line up some support for?
It's a new frontier for me personally. I'm a software engineer by nature. We're nerds, we're engineers, we're always right, of course. It comes with the territory. But being able to open source our product and connect with other engineers, because it's a software product, who are also right, always, it allows us an open discourse with those other right people to come to better answers. We can iterate really, really quickly on those good answers, weed out the bad ones. People's opinions are in the open. We can discuss those things. We can reach a better solution. And as entrepreneurs, obviously, we're all very open-minded to new ideas. That's how you grow as an entrepreneur. That's how you grow your business. And open source in that instance makes perfect sense as a software solution, because it keeps that inquisitive nature open all the way through your career. And I say it's a new frontier for me because I've been working closed source and proprietary systems for more than 2 decades. And now I'm in the open source community. It's like, it's a whole new veil has been lifted. It's like, wow, this is amazing. I'm super excited, actually. I'm really pumped to see what we can build with a whole community of engineers instead of just a couple of guys working around their computers behind their screens.
Well, we're excited to see how this unfolds. One of the big criticisms that we hear about a lot when it comes to open source is that people sort of say, oh, you're just doing something for good. There's no way you can make money off open source businesses. It's just, it's like a nice non-profit idea. And really, since the fund was founded, one of the things that we made our mission was to document different business models that companies take on that have open source solutions. And so that's something that we've done over the years, but also the data of the fund has shown us that a lot of these challenges we get are really misconceptions. We see that 80% of the portfolio companies that we've supported over the last 10 years are revenue generating. We see that almost 40% of them are profitable. We have, I think, 10 to 15% of our companies that have gone through some sort of major capital raise or exit in some shape or form. Now, these are all the kinds of financial indicators that any venture capital fund would look at. And in fact, we see that the companies in our portfolio outperform averages that we would see in early stage venture capital investing. We're also seeing that the outside world is growing investment in open source businesses. So these numbers are a little bit out of date, but from 2016, you can see that already $7 billion were raised by open source businesses. So this is not something that's on the fringes anymore. A lot of the businesses and software platforms that you might be interacting with are either open source, you don't even know it, or have been built, as we've heard from the colleagues here, to a large extent on open source stack that's available. It's one of the reasons why those companies were able to succeed, were able to scale, were able to become profitable, because they were not obligated to build everything from scratch. And so for us, that combination of open source as a principle, as an impact strategy, but also really as a sustainability strategy for the businesses is where we see the sweet spot coming together. We often say that, the technology that these companies are building are very cool, but they could probably be copied pretty easily. And so if you rely on the IP for your entire business, then it's probably not the best survival strategy in the long term. So how do we generate value as a business that's not tied to an IP that nowadays could be copied pretty easily in another shop? So that's really some of the kind of central ideas that underpin what we've been learning through the Venture Fund when it comes to open source solutions. But just to wrap up, we heard quite a lot from you about community, and community is like a really central part of open source. The community of developers, the communities that you build around your products, what you have to give back to the community. That's really a big core of how you capture and generate value as an open source solution. So you have a part of your community in the room, and I'd love to hear from each of you, just in like 2 or 3 sentences before we wrap up, what your asks are, either as individual companies or as part of this cohort. What kind of support do you think this network could give you on your journey for the next 12 months? Madhu, why don't you start, and we'll just go down the row.
The major challenge, as you know, there are lesser monitoring systems and lesser knowledge of the changes that is happening in the world. So unless and until we know what is happening, we cannot take actions, information and things like that, so that we could actually change or move ahead with these changing times. So the major things, the sensors, basically, how to make the sensors less costly. That's the main thing. So if you have something like that, I think it's a huge leap in most of the things. And apart from that, the computational space. So since you have the data, you need power to compute, understand, model, and then deliver your goods. So these 2 things, if you provide an ecosystem, then it's much easier to. So the evidences will come up, you can take action, informed actions, and based on that you can build a better, resilient world.
Okay. Yeah, I think the network of UNICEF will be very helpful. Because we know the power of the CEO, the country office of UNICEF in Mali. We've been in touch with them in the past. We are really looking forward being able to work with them in Mali on the field, because we know that with this network unlocked, we can get a lot. So this is probably one of the things we are really looking forward in this program, because we know that the UNICEF network is pretty big and pretty powerful. Yes.
So for us, well, I think I need to echo Watson's answer, which is keep putting money into the venture fund. It's an amazing opportunity for impact providing entrepreneurs to explore their ideas in a safe environment. For Similie, let me just check. We good? On the back of the prompting by the venture fund to make sure that things are digital public goods and open source, as we rewrite our enterprise platform, we are going to open source the entire thing. So that will not just be the modeling. Thank you. Not just be the developer operations around putting models into the internet, kind of like a WordPress system, drop a model in, post it. There's plenty of people producing machine learning models, but they're not developers. They can't put them into the internet. We're open sourcing and have already open sourced a lot of the schematics and infrastructure around the sensor data. We can produce sensors for roughly $1,000 US, where industry standard is maybe 100,000, plus a plane load full of consultants to install them. It's a plug and play system. You buy a sensor for $1,000, you plug it into the system, it works. What we need as a disruptor is connections into new markets, because they will look at these established systems and go, it's safe, I'll use that. I only get one for my budget, but that's fine. It's proven. It's like buying Microsoft Office. With this, you can get 10 sensors. You can get a whole catchment area done for the same thing. It just works. You can ship the product out, get a local installation team to pour some cement in a hole and put the thing in the ground. It's done. So with that, disruption becomes a matter of trust. So any government looking at our solution is going, disruption, cheap, is it going to work? So it's the cash to scale, to be blunt, but it's also the connections into those communities to build trust and value, to say, we've seen this work in Timor-Leste, it's a harsh environment, they're working. So over here, we can do the same thing. And that's the ask. It's cash for scale and connections to get into new markets.
Thank you all. Thank you for doing what you're doing, and thank you for being here today. I'm going to ask you to give a round of applause to the panel. And this is also where we wrap up this event. So the teams are all around for a little while. So we encourage you to please speak to them, ask them all the questions you have, see how you can potentially collaborate. And thank you for joining us today, especially our partners here in Stockholm that have visited our office and joined us for this discussion. Special thanks also to our venture fund partners. I know there were a lot of asks that were not planted, but we already have Finland as a big thank you, Tyra Ethereum Foundation, other partners that are not here with us, including Keita Pharmaceuticals, who have really gotten us to this point of the journey and have allowed us to scale the way that we have. Special thanks to Carl for co-hosting with us today and joining us. And finally, the big thanks to the Ventures team for pulling this off for the last week. There are also a lot of developers and also always right. So please feel free to have a chat with them as well and to learn a bit more about what we do at the fund. And thank you so much for coming.